Welcome to the Never Thrown the Towel podcast. This episode is sponsored by TESTme. We are thrilled and really proud to be sponsored by TESTme because they are an organisation that share our values and mission around improving men's physical and mental well-being. TESTme Health focuses on the important link around gut health and well-being, which is so important because it's gaining knowledge around food that impacts the gut in a negative way, which can be a game changer because we are gaining knowledge and education around nutrition and diet, ultimately resulting in a much better and safer lifestyle. I just want to say a huge thank you to TESTme for backing and supporting the Never Thrown the Towel podcast, which is stories around resilience and adversity in hope to help and inspire, and trying to change the culture around men talking with the message that talking is a strength, not a weakness. Please like and subscribe to the channel because more likes, more subscriptions, and the more this channel grows, ultimately, this will help more people. Enjoy the show. Never Thrown the Towel. Hello, so welcome to the Never Thrown the Towel project. We have got a very special guest here today, all the way from Scotland. I'm going to try and pronounce her name correctly. Introducing Iona Urquhart. Correct, yeah. She is the founder of TESTme, and thrilled to have her on the podcast because she is actually the sponsor of this season of the Never Thrown the Towel project podcast and has been such a supporter of the project. So thrilled to have her on as a guest. Welcome, Iona.
Thank you, Anthony.
First question, tell me or tell the audience what TESTme is and how and why you set this up.
So TESTme Health is a testing company, a health testing company. So primarily we focus on food intolerance, gut health, and recently we've just moved into the oral microbiome, which is really interesting. I started this about 15 years ago. So like you, I'm a barber to trade. So I was a barber did my hairdressing training, then did maybe 25 years in the barber chair. It's hard on your body.
Yeah.
6 days a week. And I had some major health issues when I was younger. And it was through testing and a girl who eventually became my mentor, really, down in Bristol area. And got to the bottom of all those health issues. A lot of it was food related, a lot of it was gut related. And I just developed a passion for it and decided I wanted a change of path, a change of career, retrained, and that's how TESTme was born.
Right, okay. And what did you, what kind of training did you get into then?
So at the time, it was what we call BER testing, which is bioelectronic regulatory medicine, which is a bit of a mouthful, I know. It's basically kinetic energy. So your body will always resist what it can't tolerate. So there's a testing mechanism you can use to ascertain whether the body is rejecting or having problems with food that you're consuming. So it's not as technical as doing blood work, which we do now, but it was so expensive to do that back in the day. It just wasn't an option for you and I to have access to that.
Yeah.
So I would say COVID probably changed that. Lab work became much more accessible. People were more interested. People had a better idea of what it was.
Yeah.
And that has just kind of opened the doors, the floodgates, if you like, for testing, which has been great.
Right, okay. And I think it's really interesting because I think one of the reasons why you have kind of, sponsored and backed what we're doing with the Never Thrown the Towel project around, obviously, mental health. I think there's so many things that marry into that with what you do in terms of, because what I've found with a lot of, say, men who are struggling with their mental health, they're actually not doing the basics right. So one thing that I've found is the nutrition and the water intake doesn't seem to be, they're not doing that, but they're doing the bad stuff, like they're drinking a lot of alcohol. So talk to me around, what's your take on, what's going into your body affecting your physical health and your mental health?
Well, I think the first thing to say is men's health has been something that I've really, really bought into. You know, as I say, I was a barber for 25 years. I spent a lot of time having conversations with men, and you will have this, men open. And it's the same for women.
Yeah.
Women go to a hairdresser and they talk all kinds of stuff that they would never speak about to somebody else. So that's really interesting. So I felt that kind of gave me a bit of a sort of front row seat, if you like, into how men think. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that I understand how men think. Clearly I don't. But you get a sense of what men don't talk about their health.
Yeah,
generally speaking.
I think you do. I think when you work in the hair industry, though, I think that repetition of basically having conversations, there's definitely like a skill set that comes from that purely about the amount of experience that you've got from running into conversations and problems and stuff.
Yeah, I think so, and it's really important when you're doing that kind of personal service that you're able to connect with people. And ultimately, we wouldn't have a business doing what we do if we couldn't connect with people. So that's really important. I think in terms of what's going in, nutrition, hydration, exercise, always talked about but always underestimated. And one of the things that I do always speak to my clients about is our bodies are still really primitive. They don't know that it's 2025. They're behaving in exactly the same way as they did thousands of years ago. So we have a primitive immune system. We've got a primitive adrenal gland system. We've got everything about us is working in exactly the same way it always has, but it's under so much more pressure. So hydration, for example, you know, we no longer have clean water. You know, our water is contaminated with chemicals. It's devoid of all the 90 or so trace minerals that we used to get when you drank water from the stream. So we're not hydrating in the same way just by drinking out of plastic bottles as we would have done back in the day. So we've got to work harder at that. Mm-hmm. So I think these are really fundamental things that people just completely underestimate. Or, you know, the doctor just says, go and drink more water and it's just stress. Those are two of the biggest things that you can do with your body that's going to create a kind of low-grade inflammation, if you like, which can lead long-term to further symptoms and problems along the line.
Right, okay.
So I think by ignoring these things right at the beginning, it's a bit like trying to build a house on sand.
Yeah.
If you don't get the foundations right, then, you know, 10 years' time, that's going to all come crashing down, and that's your diagnosis, whatever that happens to be, whether it's an autoimmune condition, whether it's cardiovascular disease, whether it's, you know, it'd be different for everybody, but ultimately the foundations weren't in place, which doesn't give you that longevity.
So what do you mean then? What are you saying there then in terms of the water intake? Are you saying that the question is how important, say, is water intake for like keeping yourself right and stuff like that? So
you could go without food for how long do you think without dying? 3 weeks maybe? I don't know, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is. How long can you live without oxygen? A few minutes?
Yeah.
How long can you live without water?
I mean,
days.
Yeah.
You know, and not hydrating is one of the biggest problems that we have, and that's where a lot of systemic inflammation isn't getting flushed out of the body.
Right, okay.
So it's just recirculating all the time.
Generally speaking, what would your recommendation if someone was to ask you the question of how much water should you be drinking on a daily basis?
Well, my understanding is that the body loses 2.3 litres of water every day, whether you like it or not. So through the bowel, through the kidneys, the lymphatic system, the skin, which is your largest organ, you're sweating it out. That's where the trace minerals come in. So when you hear people talking about electrolytes and stuff at the gym, it's just marketing, really. What you need is a really good, high-quality Celtic salt, which contains all of these trace minerals that you used to get when you drank from the stream. So,
right, okay.
You know, I've got a little glass jar in my gym bag, and after a spin class, I just put a couple of grains in my finger and drink a glass of water.
Right, okay.
Cost me $5 for a kilogram.
Ah, yeah, that's a great great little tip, yeah.
But just helping the body. So drinking water isn't as straightforward as let's just drink 2 pints of water and that hydrates me. It doesn't. It's a bit like taking a dried out houseplant, for example, and pouring in a jug of water. The soil can't absorb it all at the same time, so it just comes out the bottom. Same thing happens with the body. The cells can't absorb it in huge amounts or huge quantities at any one time. It just wants that slow and steady throughout the course of the 24 hours.
Ah, right, okay. So just like just necking it to get it in might not be the best.
No,
the best way. Slow and steady. Mm-hmm. Ah, right, okay. That's interesting. That, yeah. I don't know. I actually, in terms of water intake, I actually done a bit of a water load for when
Okay.
I had a boxing fight in December, and I was still a little bit of a distance away from making the weight. So through a bit of research, and a friend of mine who's a professional fighter, he basically told me around a water load. So I'd basically, I think for around about 4 days, I think I started off at six litres of water, and actually built that up to nearly 10 litres.
Wow.
I had.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And it was I think the science behind it is like I was kind of manipulating my body. So I'd built up to like nearly 10 litres, then obviously flushed it all out. Then my body was craving it, but I didn't have any more. Then went into, on the morning of the weigh-in, went in the sauna as well to kind of get rid of all the water, and then obviously done weigh-in, and like wow, couldn't believe how much I dropped weight.
I suppose it's like a sponge, isn't it?
Yeah,
If you soak a sponge
yeah,
and then wring it out.
yeah. No, I
it's
couldn't.
similar.
Couldn't believe it. Obviously, my body, I think, was because I'd built up all this water. The body started thinking, "Oh, there's loads of water coming in here."
And I suppose that would maybe kick off your lymphatic system a bit more as well in terms of, releasing toxins.
What's that then?
So your lymphatic system is a bit like the Hoover in your body. It goes around hoovering up all the junk, all the toxins. So, yeah, maybe that just kickstarts that a bit more.
Yeah.
So lots of people have a sluggish lymphatic system.
Yeah, and again, this is something that you mentioned exercise and stuff, and this is what I always ask now when I'm I work in the field around mental health, and this is probably the most common thing that I come across, where someone will tell me that they're struggling with the mental health. This literally happened last week on a construction site. Guy came into me, sat in the chair, said he was struggling with his mental health, really struggling. And I said, "Are you doing exercise?" "No." "Are you doing any walking or out in nature?" "No." "Are you doing any form of mindful breath work?" "Obviously not." Yeah. He wasn't in shape. I said, "What's your nutrition like? Are you drinking much water?" "No, not good." And then again, "Are you drinking alcohol?" And his reply was, I'm drinking every day." So I think it's so important with what we're touching on, especially around mental health. I think mental health, it also needs its work. You need to be implementing these things in your life, all the simple stuff. I mean, you're extremely, everything I touch on is very, very basic, but obviously you're with the field that you work in, you're extremely knowledgeable. But I think actually teaching people the basics around this.
And I think, I don't know whether this is the right thing to say, but I think as well, mental health has become there's lots of different reasons for it, and your gut is hugely connected to that, and we'll probably talk about that later, but most of us now are comfortable talking about mental health, that it's almost become this kind of normal daytime thing, which is good, but maybe not so much with men. I think, so I'm speaking for myself amongst my friends and what I hear within my peer group, and certainly with the kids, youngsters. My daughter's 18, but a lot of the basics is still ignored at that stage, and it's not that the information isn't there. I mean, you're having that conversation every day with what you're doing, and it's the same conversation. It's not going to change. It just isn't going to change. And I think if we could just get that message across to people, lay your foundations, the rest will follow. It will come, But it just takes a bit of practice, and it just takes a bit of getting out of the mindset of water's not important, exercise isn't important,
Yeah.
breath work isn't important. Well, we know it's hugely important. And how do we get that message across?
Yeah.
Because you're having that constant conversation with people, and from what you've said to me in the past is most of them are saying we're not doing that.
No, that's the most common thing.
Yeah. And construction as well. So I've done a lot of building in my lifetime. So I've been in a lot of construction sites. I know a lot of workers in that profession. And most of them are doing the same thing. They're going to Greg's for breakfast.
I was just, honestly.
They're stopping at the petrol station. They're getting their meal deal in Tesco. And what are they buying? Oasis juice, sandwiches, all the stuff that's highly inflammatory to our gut, you know, and they're going away doing this massively physical job day to day, and they've got zero fuel.
You know what? That's a cracking point that, you know, because I do a load of work with construction. I've done a podcast last week around construction and mental health and stuff, and you could probably do a podcast just on like why is construction the worst profession for suicide. I've never heard that one, but what you've just said there completely and utterly is right. Like I was I'd done a talk in the canteen last week, and it literally like
just looking around
what food they're having, and again what you've touched on there, like how physical is the job. Like if you're doing any form of sport, you're gonna be wanting to fuel yourself with goodness, but actually they're not. That's a really good, interesting point you've raised there.
And when you said there about the canteen, same can be said for kids in school.
Yeah.
Your kids aren't in school yet, but wait to see what they're feeding them.
Yeah.
And we wonder why kids have got no attention. You know, their attention span is really short. They don't have the concentration levels. Their memories aren't very good. They're not interested. They're disengaged.
Yeah.
And nutrition is a huge part of that. And I was listening to something recently, and it was a guy talking about in Tokyo, I'm sure it's in Tokyo, from kindergarten age, so from age 3, they teach their kids about nutrition for like 3 hours a day. They grow all their own stuff. They all get involved in the kitchen. So by the time they're hitting high school, they know exactly what they're fueling their bodies with. And I mean, their level of education is off the scale in terms of what the achievement is from these kids.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of clips of schools what they do. I think stuff like that should heavily be involved in the education system. I think there's a lot of stuff that should be tweaked. I mean, you mentioned breath work. Like, I think the word like meditation, that word is very fluffy.
Turns people off, doesn't it?
Yeah. Especially blokes.
Yeah.
I like to use more breath work, and I think it's that again. I think a bit more knowledge on that. I mean, it can slowing your breathing down can help you in an argument with your missus. Yeah. It can help in so many different aspects of your life. If you're going to do an interview, if you go just kind of focusing and especially with anxiety as well. Yeah. Just learning a little bit. I mean, I'm certainly not an expert. I've done a course on cold water therapy, which heavily involves breath work. Yeah. So I've educated myself on that. But my little boy who's nearly 4, I'm like teaching him around breath work because he's got a I don't know whether this happens with every young boy, but he has got a little bit of a temper on him, like a proper flips out sometimes. But I get him to do breath work, and
it works.
He's doing it all. And I think all these stuff, especially you touched on schools. Like, I've done a few, spoke at a few teacher conferences, and each conference has specifically been around mental health and suicide prevention, because it's an absolute huge problem in the schools with young people now. So I think it's so important that we start to adapt things, like you touched on there, like nutrition should be tweaked. The importance of exercise, but I definitely think nutrition is so important, isn't it?
It is, but it's also expensive to eat well in this country. It's really difficult to eat well and make good choices. And I think, coming out of COVID and having the financial aspect of things changing so quickly, lots of families struggle with that.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of teachers will say a lot of the kids who have these issues in class and are disruptive and so on, they're not being fed at home. Or what they are being fed is, with the best will in the world, pound meals from Iceland, or and it's microwaved and it's in plastic food packaging, and it's it's a challenge.
You know what's it, that's a great point as well that you've raised. Me and my wife, we've spoke about that. However, though, again, though, with a bit of knowledge, though, if you batch cook, and this is something that, like me. Have you ever seen Rich House Poor House? I think that's what it's called.
I don't think I've ever watched it, but I'm aware.
So basically the format is, you've got a very wealthy family, and then you've got a family who's struggling financially and stuff, and they tend to both have kids and stuff. And my wife was saying, like, she's quite good at being logistically with the shop and stuff, and batch cooking. Actually, if you cook a good big solid meal for the family, like a big massive spag ball or a decent sized dish, actually that can feed your days on end at the end. So I think just little stuff like that.
And it's interesting because I have these conversations with clients all the time. It's all we talk about.
Right.
And it's amazing the resistance you come up against.
Right.
And there will always be people who just want a quick fix.
Yeah.
So I get people that come into me and they will have quite debilitating symptoms. They could be head to toe with eczema or psoriasis or chronic asthma or something like that. It's hugely inflamed. And, you'll talk about water. Do you drink any water? No, I don't like water. Don't like water.
Right.
All right, how many cups of coffee do you have? I have loads of coffee, plenty of hydration. Well, did you know that for every cup of coffee you have, you cancel out about 3 glasses of water in terms of what your body can eliminate? Because it's a diuretic.
Wait there, say that again. Say that again, because...
So caffeine, for every cup of tea, caffeinated tea or coffee that you have, you will cancel out around 2 to 3 glasses of what your body can actually use to physically remove toxins from your body.
Alina, make that one a clip. That one there's a clip.
And
to go out.
Here's another little bit. Decaffeinated coffee is still 70% caffeine, and the other 30% is just the chemicals they use to strip it out.
Wow.
So
this is
it worth
this
that?
is gold. This is gold dust information, by the way.
But it's really, once you know it, you can't unknow it.
Yeah.
So I like to send people away with things like that they can just go, oh my God, if I just cut my coffee by half and increase my water, I'm giving myself.
I'm a bit of a, I've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and then another one on the way. Like, it's musical beds in my household. I'm sleeping in the dinosaur room sometimes, and then I'm up at 5 a.m, and then I'm at work. So sometimes I don't even use a spoon for the coffee. I'm pouring it in just to kind of right, come on, I need to wake up. So it's in stuff like that. It's like, right, okay, maybe I need to slightly tweak my coffee.
Well, even before you have your coffee, have a big glass of water.
Yeah. That's what I tried to do. I try to have some water first, kind of I tell my son it kind of fills your brain up with goodness. But yeah, that's definitely a clip. This was one of the good things why I wanted to. Though it would be actually cool to get you on the podcast. This episode, I think I was just kind of wanting to really kind of like ask you some information, stuff that people who are watching can actually take away. I don't know whether you'll know this answer, but testosterone in men. So that plays a heavy factor of why men struggle with the mental health, is the drop of testosterone. You know, you can, again, I'm not overly knowledgeable on it, but it's something that I am trying to make myself knowledgeable on. But if you go on Google or you type in YouTube, drop of testosterone affecting mental health, you'll get basically a lot of doctors and stuff talking on this topic. From my knowledge, testosterone in this modern day, on average of men, has significantly dropped from, say, men in the 80s. What have you got any knowledge or opinion on that, and why is that the case?
Yes and no. So firstly, I'm definitely not an endocrinologist. It's not my field. But what I do know is that your gut microbiome regulates a huge percentage of your hormonal balance.
Right, okay.
And if we have a disrupted gut microbiome, it can influence your hormones.
Right,
so
okay.
Gut dysregulation is huge. So for anyone that doesn't know what the gut microbiome is, it's that community or colony of microscopic bacteria within your intestinal tract which governs lots of aspects of your health.
Right,
one
okay.
of them is your hormones.
Right, okay.
And the second thing is toxins. Again, it's like the hydration and the nutrition. Everyone's talking about toxins, everyone's getting bored hearing about toxins, but you can't escape it. We live in a society where everything we absorb, everything we eat, everything we're exposed to carries a toxic load, and that interferes with our endocrine system.
Right, okay.
Definitely.
Just a quick one though, I know we touched on the water. What would your advice be around where to get your water and what to do with it and stuff, and any kind of like brand recommendations that you would recommend at all? Or
do you know, it's a really difficult one. It's a really good question, and it's a really difficult one to answer, because unless you're going to go and drink distilled water, which is a really difficult thing to do if you're going to do it yourself or purchase it, really, plastic is one of the worst things we can be using, because if it's sitting in storage containers for periods of time and it's heating up to 40 degrees and then cooling down to 10 degrees or whatever, the bisphenol A or bisphenol B or whatever they've put in that got rid of the BPA is leaching into that all the time. So with the best will in the world, we're drinking out of plastic bottles. Yeah. It's not helping us.
Right.
Where I work, in the office that I'm in, I would never drink from there. I don't know how people can survive showering and living with the water that's there. Every 2 or 3 days, I have to scrape scum off the taps.
Right.
Now, it's an office, so thankfully, the only thing I'd be doing really is washing my hands.
Yeah.
But, you know, the toxins now that are accumulating in our water is massive, because if you look at the amount of people, for example, who take medication, what happens when they go to the toilet? A lot of that medication seeps into our water supply.
Right, okay.
You know, a lot of people are ditching pharmaceuticals when they don't need them anymore. What do? They flush them down the toilet. Mm-hmm. So these things are all a massive, massive problem. It's a huge challenge for us. So I don't have an answer for you on that, because I'm picking my battles. I do the best that I can.
Yeah.
And it's really the only... And the other thing is, you know, my feed is all about this stuff. You can imagine if you looked at my feed, you would just...
Right.
That's all you see. And I did for a while, probably about 10, 12 years ago, got completely overwhelmed with it.
Right.
And it really kind of put me in a bit of a bad place.
Right, okay.
But I think it was probably not a bad thing, because I kind of came out of it the other side and went, do you know what, there's only so much you can do. You can't get rid of everything. Something's going to... But if you can be sensible and approach things with a bit of care and a bit of thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing maybe I suggest to my clients as well, is try and spend an hour a week. Shut yourself in a room, tell your wife, your husband, don't want a cup of tea, don't want you to come and speak to me, just leave me for an hour. And this week I'm going to learn about what would be the best way for me to drink water at home. Do I have a decent water supply? Do I want to install a filter, for example?
Mm-hmm.
You know, these kind of things. Go and learn about it for an hour. You straight away can share that with your family. Am I still using toxic cleaning products? Right, next time I buy my cleaning products, I'm going to research what I'm going to buy before I purchase it. You know, so it's just little changes. And I see a lot of people getting a lot of anxiety around this now because it's everywhere. It's all over our feeds. It's all over social media. And people are becoming completely like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Everything's toxic around me. And yes, it is. But you can just take small... I mean, it took me a year to get rid of my Tupperware. Every time I went to the supermarket, I bought a new glass jar for my batch cooking, for example. So it all just takes time. So it's just taking little simple measures and simple steps. I think if you try and do too much too quick, you get overwhelmed, it's too expensive, and it just becomes too much.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure that answers your question, but it's,
there's
it's picking your battles, isn't it?
Yeah. You're not going to enjoy your life, are you?
No.
If you just kind of like go down a minefield of all that. But that's something that there's a boxer that I follow on YouTube, and he always has his water in a glass bottle, and he's like, it's not being in a plastic bottle. Yeah. So is that a little tip that you would say if you can use
here's another little tip. I think that's a great idea. And the other thing is people who buy coffee. So when you go to the coffee shop and they fill up your little plastic cup, because that's what it's coated with, and then you put the styrofoam lid on top, what happens? You get all this condensation that leaches up into the lid, drips back down into your coffee. And what's in that? All the chemicals that they use to mould the plastic. And people are drinking that 3-4 times a day. Now that's massive. So what you do is you take yourself a thermos flask, carry it around with you, and you ask them, I want my coffee, but just pop it in that, please.
Right, okay.
A bit like your box of the glass bottle.
Right.
Little changes like that are really easy to do. And it doesn't mean I'm never going to have a cup of coffee with a lid, but you're just reducing your exposure to these things.
Right, okay.
As and where you can.
Right, okay. What's the most common thing that you come across where someone's got, say, a problem with the gut, they come to you, like, what is there any tips and advice around nutrition that you could give the listeners and stuff?
So
or is it totally just broad and very tailored?
I suppose what's interesting maybe is, I would say, it's hard to say timescale wise, but maybe certainly the last 5 years. I have a little form that people fill in when they come in and see me. And on that form is a list of symptoms. And I just ask them, circle any that you've had in the past or that you currently have. It doesn't matter how long ago it was, etc. And I would say 75% of people will circle bloating. Now, I don't know if you've had this conversation with anybody or if people talk to you about it, but it's a we've got a gut epidemic going on now. And it's not just about the gut, it's how it impacts everything else. So digestion tips for people who get bloated. If you're not going to do a test and find out why, one of the first things I would say is don't drink while you're eating. So a lot of people will drink water or juice or whatever with their meals.
Or a pint.
And one of the reasons that's a problem is that we have these amazing digestive enzymes that we release when we chew food, and that's the start of our digestive process. And what they do is they open the little trap door in the top of your stomach to allow all the food and the enzymes in. And then you have these amazing proton pump enzymes inside the stomach, and their job is to shut the door. And then they release all the hydrochloric acid to help break down your food. Now, if you drink at the same time as you eat, you will dilute those enzymes by over 50%.
Right, okay.
Which means digestion just doesn't... Food starts to putrefy in that stomach environment, which really shouldn't happen.
Right, okay.
And when it reaches the small intestine, which is the first place it should be relatively sterile, you should be getting rid of all those bugs that your food's been exposed to, etc. And if that doesn't happen, then we can start developing things like inflammatory diseases in the bowel. We can start developing maybe indigestion or reflux or SIBO. So drinking while eating, big no-no.
What
20 minutes
even
before or
even
after.
like even water?
Yeah. Even.
Ah, right, okay.
I mean, look, I think a lot of people drink because they're washing their food down. We're in too much of a hurry.
Right,
You know,
okay.
a lot of people kind of hoover their food. They don't chew it properly, and that's another one, chewing. It's a bit like the hydration. It's boring, but it's a fundamental aspect of digestion. So that would be certainly two things that I would think about. And again, hydration. Your bowel needs hydration. It is literally a big 20 metre or 20 foot sponge. And if you don't keep that hydrated, it becomes very rigid. It makes it really hard for you to form a stool.
Right, okay.
So that would be another
Right,
thing
okay.
I would be suggesting.
Right, okay. So you mentioned stool.
Sexy stuff we're talking about today.
Yeah. Well, you've nudged me into talking about
Okay.
it then. So, like I always say, one of my strap lines is that I cut hair and talk shit for a living because I'm a barber. But we are going to talk literally about shit.
Yeah, and yours, yours
my
in
shit
particular.
in particular. So, I'm okay for you to because I don't know the results.
Okay.
So, talk us through basically what you done with like my test then and yeah, talk us through exactly what it was and what we were going to get from it.
So I think when you decided you wanted to do it, I think we'd been talking about your chats with men in the barber chair, and we started talking about the gut microbiome. Much
Yeah.
the same kind of conversation as we're having now.
Yeah.
And you were asking, oh, well, what is that? How does it work? So
Yeah.
we can go into that if you
Yeah.
want to.
I want to try and get as much because I think you're a bundle of knowledge, and I think there could just be there's so many benefits of learning from this.
And I think the gut microbiome is something, most people have heard of it now. They kind of got an idea of what it is. And when we talk about friendly bacteria and unfriendly bacteria, most people think about Yakults and, Benecol and these kind of products. So the gut microbiome it's kind of maybe 20-year-old science. About 20 years ago, scientists mapped out all the bacteria that we play host to as humans. So we've got a skin microbiome, we've got an oral microbiome, we've got a gut microbiome, and a few others. So the gut microbiome specifically lives within the intestinal tract. And it consists of, anything between, some scientists say 50 trillion, some say 100 trillion of these microbes which live within that environment. So it is classed as an organ, but it's not a physical organ. I couldn't reach inside and lift it out, for example, because
Right.
it's this community or colony of microscopic bacteria. And a good way to envisage it is maybe thinking of it as like a beehive or a bee colony. There's just that constant hum. It's just always working in the background. So the bees really, their primary job is to break down our food. And when they break down that food, they release these amazing compounds. And there'll be things like short-chain fatty acids, which can be hugely anti-inflammatory for us, propionate and butyrate and all these amazing compounds. And they literally get pulled through your gut wall and delivered into your bloodstream. Bloodstream's a little bit like the M25. It travels everywhere. So basically these compounds now travel around all destinations, delivering all these compounds, regulating your hormone health and your brain health and your skin health and your heart health and everything else. So we have all these gut axis, so gut brain, gut skin, gut whatever, lungs, etc. When we go through our lifetime and we're exposed to toxins like we were talking about earlier on, they damage that environment by killing off the bees.
Right, okay.
Now, in that beehive, we already have a few wasps. And those wasps consist of everything that your primitive immune system has been exposed to in your lifetime. So there's going to be things like parasites, there will be fungi, there will be pathogenic bacteria, there will be COVID, there will be E. coli, there will be all these different things. Now, because your immune system lives within that environment, he keeps a really small amount of it in there and uses it as a reference library. So if you come into contact with it again, he knows what it is. So balance should be somewhere around 90% good guys, 10% bad guys. And when you have that balance, everything works in that constant hum. Okay, everything's regulated and everything's balanced. When we kill off the friendly bacteria with toxins that we talked about, so for example, when you go and fill your car up, you'll inhale benzene. That's a toxin. Now, manufacturers will argue, well, it's such a minimal amount, it's not going to have any impact on you. But when you do that 3 times a week and you're exposed to that every time you go to the petrol station to buy your Greg's bacon roll or whatever it is, it accumulates in our body.
Right.
Every time you stand under the shower, every time you wash your hands, you're exposed to all the chemicals that they put in our water, chlorine being one of them, highly inflammatory to us. I could go on for a week, aerosols, air fresheners, plastic, the whole 9 yards. So what they're doing is they're constantly disrupting that environment by killing off some of those friendly bacteria. If you at any point in your life have had a course of antibiotics, it's a bit like dropping a nuclear bomb in your hive. You'll kill off a few wasps over here, but you also take out a huge amount of the colony at the same time. Medication will do that. Steroids will do that. Alcohol will do it. Smoking, all the stuff that, we're seeing regularly today. So over your lifetime, it's a really good principle to sit and think about, right, what is everything that my primitive immune system has been exposed to over my lifetime? And you start to get a little bit of a sense of what your balance might look like. So let's say, for example, the average person that comes into me will definitely have some gut dysbiosis, just depends how much. I get quite a lot of clients who maybe have had quite a lot of trauma in their lives, so quite a lot of emotional stuff growing up, family-related stuff, has fight or flight, kicks in. All these things affect the gut microbiome.
Wow.
So if you've got maybe a quantity of 70% good guys and 30% bad guys, we've got a bit of a problem, because the bad guys now are able to start breaking down your food, and they don't release nice, friendly compounds that we need. They release things like methane, hydrogen, and formaldehyde, which get drawn into your bloodstream, which hits the M25, which travels around all destinations, delivering those toxic compounds to your brain and your heart and your endocrine system and everything else. So when you asked me about testosterone earlier, the point I was making about the microbiome having an influence is what is being signaled to the endocrine system. What's controlling that? What's governing how that works? It creates a hormone imbalance. For you, maybe it's too much testosterone. For someone else, it's not enough testosterone. Women going through menopause, why are we all suffering going through menopause? Because we've all got a hormone imbalance. And unless you fix the hormone imbalance and where it's coming from, you're never going to fix the problem. We're just constantly, painting over the cracks all the time.
Yeah.
Little warning lights on our dashboard telling us there's an issue, there's a problem. Symptoms shouldn't really be happening.
Just a quick one to jump in what you're saying there, just because it's triggered a question. So when you're talking about a hormone imbalance, so the testosterone replacement therapy is starting to be talked about and starting to be a thing. Obviously, with the older that you get, it's something that that I would certainly consider potentially. Is the logic in that then? So someone say who's in the 40s, testosterone's dropped.
Yep.
Does it, in your opinion, and again, I know that you're not an expert in this field, but is the logic of topping that up to where it...
Yeah. I think the biggest problem that we face is that what we're topping it up with is synthetic hormones.
Right, okay.
So unless you're using identical hormone therapy, I think it's... How beneficial is it? I don't know. We don't have the data on that for testosterone, but I think it's fair to assume that synthetic hormones are not really going to be as good as a real thing.
Yeah.
But what have I said to you? So based on the gut microbiome report that you have, which came in the other day, it's good timing, you do have a bit of an issue.
Right, okay.
In terms of your gut microbiome. Now, what if we were able to say, right, okay, go and do a hormone test. Let's find out what your testosterone levels are. Let's look at your gut report and let's look at all the suggestions and all the changes that you could make, which are just small adjustments in terms of your diet and all these things that we've already talked about. If you can flip the switch in the gut microbiome to improve your hormone balance, would that not be a more favourable option than taking a synthetic hormone replacement?
Yeah, so that was going to be one of my questions then. So is there basically things you can do with your nutrition that can basically help or fix all of that. And
fixes maybe isn't quite the right word.
Right. Okay.
I think balance.
Improve.
Improve. That's much
better. So what is that then? Talk us through that.
So the test that you've done has measured for 2,000 different bacteria in your gut microbiome. And out of those bacteria, you've got 9 significant ones that the body needs for that kind of balance and regulation. You will have a chart which will tell you you're really high in this, you're really low in this, maybe this isn't detected. And there was actually quite a few in yours which came up which weren't detected. Now, and I've only learned this recently actually through one of the nutritionists that works with the company that I'm in. Once we're deficient, if you can't detect, or once we become, the levels of that bacteria become so low, they become extinct and you actually can't replace them.
Right, okay.
Which is really interesting. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
You can change the bacteria in your gut by introducing bacteria from probiotics, which is supplementing, but you can also do it through diet. But you need to know which ones are prevalent and which ones are low. So when we're talking, do you use probiotics?
No, what's that then?
So probiotics are like a capsule that you buy, and
No, I don't.
they introduce more bees to your hive, basically. They're introducing that friendly bacteria.
You need to do me a list for Holland and Barrett.
Yeah, we're going to be doing, I have got a bit of a list for you. Might be quite expensive. And this, again, sometimes puts people off as well.
Yeah.
And that can be a bit of a problem. So people are spending a lot of money on probiotics and prebiotics these days to balance their gut microbiome, but they don't actually know what they're balancing.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing a lot of, so have you heard of, like, lactobacillus is probably one of the most common ones that people will go, I think I maybe heard of that.
No, I haven't heard of that.
It's a really important bacteria in your gut. Bifidobacterium is another one. Now, because there's more well-known than others, people are supplementing with that all the time. Oh, let's go and take loads of this because it's really good for me. Mm-hmm. What we're finding is these gut reports are telling us we've got way too much lactobacillus, and bacteria literally takes up space. So now, if you keep feeding the lactobacillus, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So now your bifidobacteria gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
Right, okay.
Now, you need both of those to regulate your hormones and your brain health and your skin health and everything else. You need the balance.
Right, okay.
But one is drowning out the other.
Right.
So this is where the gut test is really good at targeting, well, which specific bacteria are having an impact on which axis of your body. Is it your hormones? Right, well, we can see straight away that's not ideal. So how are we going to change that? Well, we need to eat the correct foods to feed up the guy that's not flourishing, and we need to stop eating the foods that keeps feeding the guy over here that's overtaken him.
Right, okay.
And that's what the test results will do. It will specifically give you your top star player foods that you want to be putting in for the next 12 weeks, a lot of.
Right.
Then other ones at moderation, and other ones that you want to be keeping back, maybe get rid of them 80%.
Right, okay.
Because you can change and influence that
on the top of your head,
really
is there anything that was jumping out from my test at all? From
yours? Your insulin, your body's ability to regulate your insulin is a little bit off, but that's just just from a gut microbiome perspective.
Right.
And you're really interesting actually was you're really struggling to synthesize your vitamins and minerals.
Right, okay.
So I imagine that you eat well.
Yeah.
And you do all the other right things and you avoid the things you shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But yet you don't have the right specific bacteria to get the best benefit from those. So right, I think off the top of my head, now I haven't looked at all of it in complete detail yet, but I think there was only 2 out of 12 vitamins and minerals that you were actually synthesizing.
Right,
which is really interesting because moving forward, that's going to be a problem for you later on. But if we can help balance and regulate that now, over like maybe a 12-week period, or 3 to 6 months would be kind of a realistic stage to look at. That just, moving forward into the next decade makes you much healthier. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something that I became a father. I was a little bit late to the party about being a dad. I think I was 39 when I first become a dad.
and I think, you know, I want to be as healthy as I can. So I really am trying to be as healthy as I possibly can, and obviously with a bit more knowledge and stuff, you can, you know, I want to live as long as possible.
I know, and well, there's an interesting thing. So people say that I want to live as long as possible, and longevity is really important to us. But do we want to live as long as possible and spend the last 10 years of our lives with some horrible or debilitating disease?
No.
So that's what this is all about now.
No, I mean, I still want to win Dad's Sports Day.
Yeah.
I'm 43. I you know, I still want to be.
Yeah.
I want to be active. I want to be.
Is that starting this year school, or is it next year?
He starts in September.
Right, so you'll have one then next year.
Yeah.
So we'll get your dad ready for that.
Yeah, but no, I do want to be as fit and as healthy and I think that's
for as long as possible.
For as long as possible, yeah.
And that's where this is really interesting, because when we sit down and go through those results, you'll be able to see, right, okay, another little analogy which is quite useful for people. Think of this as a modulator. So think hands on the steering wheel of your car. We're all driving along a straight road. Now, some of us are going straight ahead. Some of us are 1 or 2 degrees out. Some of us are this. Now, even if you're 1 or 2 degree out, which maybe your test might suggest based on what that information that we have, if you're 1 or 2 degrees out, it's going to take a while, but you are going off the road.
Yeah.
And what this is doing is it's given us the ability to just nudge that back so that you can keep going straight for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And it's trying to avoid the pitfalls, trying to avoid the diagnosis, trying to avoid being in a place that you can't get out of, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health.
Yeah. Yeah. I also, if I remember rightly, I think what triggered the test was conversations around ADHD. I'm sure.
And that did come up.
So I'll be honest, I didn't think any form of nutrition or gut would have been any form of relevance or linked with ADHD and stuff. So talk to me about that then. So
we've already talked about how the gut microbiome, if you have the right bacteria, the right harmony, if you like, in your hive, you're creating the right compounds. And all of those compounds are doing different things. Now, some of them, so when we talk about mental health, serotonin is hugely important for that, yes?
Yeah.
Where does serotonin get produced?
Serotonin, I don't know. Pass.
Most people will say the brain, because we think of it as a brain hormone, but it's actually...
Yeah, what's serotonin again?
Serotonin is your feel-good, your happy hormone.
Right, okay.
So
you've got the cortisol's the stress hormone. Anxiety.
Yeah.
Go through them then.
So serotonin is your feel-good, your happy hormone. So people who are on antidepressants often are quite low in serotonin, for example.
Right, okay.
Now, around, I believe, 90% is made in our gut. Now, it has to get from your gut to your brain. And in order to do that, we have these amazing neurotransmitters. So we've got this dorsal vagus nerve, which runs between our gut and our brain. And it basically is a communication channel. So if you think of, let's use Royal Mail as an analogy.
I used to work for them.
Right,
first
okay.
job.
So Anthony goes to work and he gets this load of serotonin, and his job is to deliver it to the brain. Now, Anthony needs some help with that, and you've got another 3 or 4 drivers that help you. What happens if 2 of those drivers are off sick?
Right,
How much serotonin gets delivered to where it needs to go?
Yeah, there's not
as much as there should be, yeah. So we have that disruption within the gut microbiome and the brain, which is your signalling process.
Right, okay.
So if you disrupt the neurotransmitters or the activity of the neurotransmitters, you create an imbalance in the brain. Now, it might be the serotonin's not getting there, it might be something else. It can be a host of different things, but it will show up differently for different people.
Yeah.
So for one person, it might show up as brain fog.
Well, it's from a simple perspective, it's definitely, there's totally not I think there's totally not a logic, because, you know, when you eat shit, you feel shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is that,
you do.
is that, and that's where it's coming from.
And once you feel shit, you just want to eat shit as well.
Yeah.
So you get caught, and that's where your guys that you're talking to all the time, that's where they are. They're in that cycle of until they can pull them. Because, so here's another interesting thing about the bacteria. Remember I said they take up space. If you're only eating junk food, you only feed the bacteria who eat junk food or who break down junk food.
Right, okay.
They become bigger and they drown out the guys that like spinach and bananas and all the other stuff that we should be having. So they are shouting louder, feed me, feed me, feed me, which is the sausage rolls and the burgers and the pizzas and, you know, all this stuff. And it almost becomes a craving.
Yeah.
So when people talk about cravings, often that's where it's driving
Okay.
from. So to get back to that whole, how does that look for you? If you have that transmitter or neurotransmitter imbalance, it might show up as ADHD. So we have something called GABA receptors as well, and they are there to dampen the nervous system, keep everything really calm. And again, if you've got an imbalance, you either keep it too calm, which becomes that kind of low mood and depression, or you get overexcited and, you know, make poor decisions or, you know, whatever that looks like.
Right.
So we give it a title, we give it a category. Now, for somebody else, it might show up as bipolar.
Okay.
For somebody else, it might show up as panic attacks and severe anxiety.
Yeah.
So when people come in, and again, it's a wee bit like the bloating one we talked about earlier, anxiety is getting circled on my forums more and more and more. And people my age, mid-50s, and I'm always asking, well, where's it coming from? Why do you feel like that? And it's really interesting. Once you start poking around and asking the right questions, you start finding out exactly what lifestyle is like,
Right,
or
yeah.
maybe past stuff, things in the past that have been a problem. We mentioned trauma earlier on.
Yeah.
Can have a huge impact on that later on.
Yeah.
So
Very interesting.
yeah, so in answer to your question, I suppose, how does the gut impact mental health? It impacts it in so many different ways.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I'm learning and fascinated with a lot of the stuff that you're saying. And even though, you know, you're coming out with some words that I don't know, I really actually think it's all logic. What you're saying.
It makes complete sense.
It's all of this. You know, the food is affecting all these different hormones, but these hormones affect how we are.
Yeah.
Like the cortisol, like the like all of these hormones affecting our emotions.
Yeah.
And then it coming into play.
Absolutely.
So it's heavily all linked.
It's always linked. It's always linked. I think we live in a society where medicine, as amazing as it is very disjointed. You know, if you've got a gut problem, you go and see a gastroenterologist. If you've got a brain problem, you go and see a neurologist. If you've broken your arm, you go and see orthopedics. But when we put disease together, you know, if I've got heart disease, I go and see my cardiologist. But actually, what if the root of the problem was in my gut? Or actually, cardiovascular disease is very heavily related to the oral microbiome and what's happening in there. So we always just assume that I've got a heart problem and that nothing else is an issue. But that's just the weak link in your chain.
Right, yeah.
And if you keep pulling on it, it's going to break.
Because this is just me, literally just off the cuff kind of based on what you've told me and stuff. So I never had asthma as a kid. Mm-hmm. Then I seemed to develop a little bit of asthma. Mm-hmm. It hasn't come into play for a long time, but there was a period of my life where I would basically, especially at night time, where I basically would get heavily out of breath and actually needed an inhaler. Now I haven't, I have not really had that. It's kind of disappeared.
Right, so asthma and eczema, nearly always food related.
Really?
Yeah.
Right,
Interesting.
okay.
I was going to talk to you about that as well.
Well,
with your results.
Oh, really? Because that's that's really interesting because, and I was wanting to go to the doctor. I have got a little bit of eczema on my knee, and I'm just kind of like, why? Where's that come from? So is that something that's flagged up?
Yeah, it is
Really?
actually. Yeah. So
Wow.
that will be down to, so when we have food-related issues or we develop a food intolerance or a sensitivity, it's nearly always because of something called intestinal permeability, which is leaky gut for short. It just means you've got a gut that's leaking toxins into the bloodstream. So if you imagine that amazing intestinal tract that you've got, big long hose pipe, okay? Inside the hose pipe is all the waste in the bowel, obviously. And on the outside is your bloodstream and around 70% of your immune system who's constantly just scanning for pathogens. Now, you need a barrier to protect your bloodstream from all the waste in your bowel. And that's called your epithelial layer, which is really modest. It's only 1 cell thick. So imagine inside that hose pipe, you're going to coat it with a permeable layer. So let's say it's like a sieve. Okay, so there's tiny little holes in that layer, and all that's allowed to pass through those holes are the molecules which are small enough. So all your nutrients and the compounds and the short chain fatty acids that we've already talked about, they all leak into the bloodstream and they're then delivered to all the different systems and organs in your body. But when we have inflammation or too much inflammation in our body, it damages that epithelial layer. We have something called tight junctions that hold the cells together, okay? And when we have things like stress, ongoing stress, when we have all the toxins that we talked about earlier, if you've got any medications that you use, any antibiotic use, that kind of thing, it damages those tight junctions and the cells split apart.
Right, okay.
So you've basically now left your front door wide open.
Right,
So now larger molecules can now leak, crossing your immune system into your bloodstream. Now that can include undigested molecules of food. Now at that point, your immune system identifies Mr. Tomato who's just arrived in here. That shouldn't be in your bloodstream because it's heading for your heart and all your other organs. So what your immune system does is he releases what we call an IgG antibody who will initiate an inflammatory response to remove that toxin and get it out of the body as quickly as possible, which is what you need your hydration for and your lymphatic system for, because it moves all of that out. Now, as those food molecules are leaking into your bloodstream, you're triggering that response, but the antibody who initially stands up and replies to it has got a memory which you've now just activated. So his job is now to go looking for Mr. Tomato or Mr. Dairy or whoever it happens to be.
Right.
It's likely going to be the guy that you eat most often because he's the guy that leaks in more often than not.
Right, okay.
Now, the epithelial layer, the reason it's so modest and fine is that every 3 to 5 days it's completely renewing itself. So sometimes your door will be wide open, sometimes it will be quite firmly shut. So sometimes that molecule gets into your bloodstream and sometimes it doesn't. Mm-hmm. So you don't always have a response every time you eat that food, not like an allergy, which is really obvious to us, happens really quickly. So what we now have is this accumulation of inflammation because the body's using inflammation to remove it.
Right,
because it's the only tool that he's got in his box to get rid of anything.
Right,
so a bit like putting the plug in the bath, you turn on the inflammation tap, and over time we fill it up. Now, back in the day, and you remember this because you should remember this, when we ate seasonally, when things went out of season, we stopped eating it for a large part of the year. So we would desensitize those antibodies. So by the time you introduce it 9, 12 months later, your immune system has stood down. So that food was no longer a problem to you. But now global transport allows us to eat the same foods 365 days of the year. So guess what? We do. Mm-hmm. So that same food is constantly crossing that barrier. Now, as you fill up the bath and never turn off the tap, eventually you're going to flood the room. So if the bathroom's upstairs and it's been flooding for the last couple of years, what does the ceiling look like?
Yeah.
That's your symptoms.
Right,
now, for you, it's shown up as a respiratory symptom. So it's like asthma. So it's an indication there's too much inflammation in the body, and that's how it's manifesting for you. Mm-hmm. That starts to go away, and guess what? You used inhalers, yes?
Yeah,
which
I
are
did,
basically like an anti-inflammatory.
Yeah.
Now, what that does is it's constantly replacing your plasterboard.
Right, okay.
But the water didn't go away.
Yeah. You just covered it.
Moved somewhere else.
Right, okay.
So now it shows up as a skin condition.
Right.
How do we treat the skin condition? We go and get some steroid cream. And we use that all the time, which creates inflammation, which damages our barrier, leaves our door open, makes us more.
Okay. So so in a nutshell, did like something flag up around eczema?
No, but what flagged up is from a gut microbiome point of view, you've got very low amounts of bacteria which help you repair gut lining.
Right, okay.
Now, the good news for you is you're doing all the anti-inflammatory stuff that you need, like the cold water therapy and stuff is just an absolute no-brainer for inflammation. It's a great way to get rid of it. If you weren't doing that, I suspect your asthma, your eczema would be considerably worse.
Right, okay.
You may even end up with something else.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So again, what we're looking from those results is, right, okay, you don't have enough butyrate bacteria which can create these short-chain fatty acids that heal that barrier. So we can look specifically at that bacteria and go, right, okay, well, we know that maybe certain types of fibre will be really beneficial for you just now because it's going to encourage these bacteria that you're really low in. Mm-hmm. So yours, for example, came back and said maybe, I think resistant starch, for example, would be really good for helping you with that just now. That's things like cooled boiled potatoes, cooled rice, green bananas, just random things, but they specifically target and feed those bacteria that you want to encourage, as opposed to them being ripe, because when they become ripe, the fibre changes.
Right,
so
because I churn out bananas.
Okay.
I eat bananas a lot.
Okay, so we're going to talk about green bananas. You'll be the odd man out. You'll be picking out all the green ones in the supermarket.
Well, absolutely will be, but I churn through bananas.
So that would be a really good test for us then. So as we look through that test, and now we've got this kind of skin thing that I'm aware of, let's monitor that.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
That'll be really interesting, yeah.
But the next thing we really need to do to find out for you is, I suspect you'll probably have some food intolerances based on that you're just unaware of.
Right, yeah.
So it'd be quite interesting to find out which foods are you eating which are damaging that, keeping that antibody active.
Right, yeah, cool. Very interesting. Some of that I'm going to touch on. This is something that I discovered actually where my grandma brought this on actually. So we'll get on to like alkaline foods and acidic foods, and then we'll get into the conversation about vegetarian, vegan.
Okay.
Meat eaters. I'd be keen to know your thoughts on that. But is there any link around cancer? Because and again, you'll correct us if I am wrong. So, am I right in thinking cancer struggles to live in alkaline environments and thrives on acidic environments? And can nutrition help or affect cancer?
Yeah. And again, right, kid, this is not my field.
Yeah.
But what I am aware of is that we all have a natural pH balance. So for anyone who does any gardening, they will know that if you plant a shrub in an acidic soil and it needs an alkaline soil, that shrub will never thrive. It's very similar for us as humans. So our pH, off the top of my head, I think sits at 7.34, it should be at. If it drops below that, and it doesn't take much to drop below it, we hit that acidic environment in our body, and it means that our body can no longer defend and heal itself on a cellular level. So cancer will thrive in an acidic environment, which is exactly what you said. And anyone who wants to really understand that could go and read a book called The China Study. Don't ask me who wrote it because I can't remember.
Right.
But it was basically proven through this study. And if you have an alkaline environment, which means that your diet is maybe more predominantly plant-based, you alkalize your body, which means that your body can heal and repair on a cellular level in a much better way.
Right, okay.
So when people talk about being vegan or vegetarian or carnivores or whatever it is that your choice is, my personal opinion or view is that you don't have to be any of those. I think it's just the old term, everything in moderation. You know, again, going back to that primitive body that we live in, it doesn't understand that we now have access to animal products every day from the supermarket. It still believes that we would be foraging and most of our diet would be plant-based. You know, you would catch the odd rabbit or the odd fish or whatever back in the day. So I eat meat. I do try and keep as many vegetables. We're pretty good with our veggies, actually. I mean, to keep a healthy gut microbiome, we should be having in the region of about 30 different plants a week.
Right, okay.
For anybody who's interested and wants to monitor that, there's a brilliant app called Plant Points. So basically, you just put in whatever you're eating. So you make your salad box. I've got radishes. I've got whatever it is, and I'll give you a point or 2 points. Maybe you had a turmeric tea. It'll give you a quarter of a point. Example. So it'll count that through the week. It's a really good way of kind of monitoring what your plant intake is, which I think is really useful.
Yeah. No, it was like, just I discovered that because me grandma, she got cancer, and it was fascinating. She was like an old school woman, but she'd started doing a lot of education, and then she basically pretty much became totally plant-based. So she was, juicing all of the time. She stopped eating meat. She stopped eating fish. She generally went plant-based, and she looked a picture of health.
Yeah.
She fought. She got stage 4 cancer in 2014. Fought all the way through till 2022.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah,
it's impressive, isn't it?
And she was a picture of health pretty much. She done chemo, but once she came out of the chemo and she consistently kept up that nutrition, heavily plant based. She was a picture of health. So yeah, and she was the one who was showing me all around. Like I'd never heard of alkaline or acidic foods. I didn't know what it was, and it's like, I mean, all of the good stuff that we kind of like, the chocolate, the alcohol, coffee, all of the stuff that like we tend to like or go towards. It's all acidic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's all of the real good stuff, so all pretty much grown from the earth.
Look, Mother Nature knew best, didn't she? She gave us everything we need, and we've become so advanced, haven't we? Particularly from a medical standpoint, which is great. And if you break your leg, you want to go and see a doctor. But when we have a disease, I think a lot of it is about trying to give the body the right conditions to heal itself, because that's what it's designed to do. And the more we can learn about that, remember I said about that hour every week, try and spend it. If that interests you, go and spend an hour learning about the acid alkaline plants in humans. Or so I have quite a few clients that will come into me and they've gone completely carnivore.
Okay.
And a lot of it will be driven around weight, trying to maintain.
Well, men are upset. I mean, I'm no different, but a lot of us blokes are obsessed with protein. So, I find that if I'm looking at aesthetically, so if I'm going on holiday and I want to basically aesthetically look good, I find I'll get results by keeping low carbs, and I find a high protein diet quite good to stick to, because for me it's like I'm kind of not sacrificing. So if I'm having 6 eggs and a ribeye steak, that's kind of not.
And do you do any protein through plants though?
I will. I'll still have the greens. I'll still have the broccoli.
Your beans and legumes and lentils and these things are really high protein levels.
Yeah, so I used to. My wife was a vegetarian for. This is really interesting. Actually, what happened to my wife? So my wife actually was. She was a vegetarian for quite a long time. When we were having our second boy, oh my God, she just was like, I need meat now. Go on. I remember she was like, go and get me a McDonald's.
Really?
And I want meat. And I don't know why. Something
body
changed
her
when
body
she
would have been
was
craving something.
Something changed, and she eats meat now.
Yeah.
She never looked back. But Xander, our second son, changed me, and she was a strict quite, she was. So in my household, it was a lot of getting the protein a lot of the time from the beans and stuff. So I'm kind of have a bit of knowledge on that. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going there. But in terms of the high protein diet,
pregnancy is a funny thing though. It can, the body will crave what it needs, and I think when
do you reckon
women
that's
are
what
pregnant,
it probably was?
I think so. I mean, I think most women will have some kind of craving when they're pregnant, and it's usually down to mineral deficiency. Magnesium being, or there's 3 magnesiums that we used to get from our water and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, when they used to say that women would crave coal when they were pregnant, it wasn't the coal itself, it was the trace minerals that were in it.
Right.
That the body's just craving that.
Yeah.
And we're so devoid of it.
And is there is it a different type of protein that you're getting from a meat to, say, a plant?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not far from an expert on that, but
Right.
I am aware that there's a lot of plants that will give you at least as much protein, if not more.
Right.
And maybe part of that is down to the way our meat is manufactured. We don't have that field to plate thing anymore, do we? And antibiotics are in our food chain and things like that, which impact the protein that you're eating. Which again, if a lot of men are going on a high protein diet and eating lots of meat and eggs and stuff like that, where's it coming from?
Yeah.
What's it being contaminated with? If you've got a lot of antibiotics through that food chain, guess what it's going to impact? Your testosterone levels.
Right. Okay. Right.
Which is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Now,
it's all kind of
all connected.
It's all connected. Aye.
And the other thing
what you touched on.
Yeah, and the other thing that's really interesting on the gut microbiome test is it measures what your protein carbs synthesis is. Can I break down protein effectively? Now, I get a lot of guys that will come in and they're on really high protein diets, and I work with a lot of sports individuals. And one of the big reasons they'll come in is because digestively they're broken. It just doesn't work properly. And a lot of that reason is because they don't have the right bacteria to break down protein effectively.
Right, okay. I'll tell you what would be interesting. I know that. Do you live close to the Saltman brothers?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that, when we got them on the podcast, obviously the amount of, how many calories they take, because obviously they're massive blokes, but also for their sport. So that would be an extremely interesting one.
It is a conversation I've had with them.
Right, okay.
I'm not sure they really want to know. Which,
Well,
look, that's an extreme sport. What that will be doing to the metabolism, etc., will be quite phenomenal.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting to see. I know a lot of weightlifters now, a lot of strong men measure their gut. They're
right,
looking at
okay.
their gut all the time, because the other thing that happens is we get systemic inflammation as well, which means then that muscle recovery becomes a real problem when you're training to that kind of level. So if you've got high inflammation levels, you're going to have lots of lymphocytes and white blood cells in your tissue and your muscles, which means that your body's not breaking it. So your post-exercise is a problem.
I think the thing is, though, that I think that's probably a trait in men, though, as well, though, in terms of and I'm no different, really. A lot of the time we'll just bury our head with a if we can't directly see the problem, it doesn't exist, and we kind of don't want to know. Do you know what I mean? But I think with knowledge, like I'm gonna, once you give me my tests, I'm gonna put into play of slightly tweaking it to try to improve what the what the potential things I can improve on.
Yeah, and I mean, we could do we could set up something that we can monitor how that looks for you in the coming months and test again.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to let people know how that goes.
Yeah, that would be interesting, that.
Something I'd like to ask you, A, because you're a man, and B, because you are doing what you do. Do you think that men respond better to a scientific thing? So a lot of conversations I have around this with men is very much, you've just said it, bury our head in the sand. If I can't see the problem, it doesn't exist. But if you actually know there's a problem, even though you're burying your head in sand about it, if you're given an opportunity, say, for example, like this, to say, well, look, this is telling us why it's not working properly. Is that something, do you think, that men would be more engaged with? So for your mental health, for example,
Yeah.
if men were to understand that a lot of that can be down to the conditions of the gut, for example, and they could change that if they had the information.
Yes.
Do you think a lot of men would find that useful, or would they still bury their head in the sand?
So that's a good question. So I would, personally speaking, I would say that would work with men. The reason why I say this, again, this is just me speaking. I think us men, we like goals. We work well towards goals, and we like tasks, and we like fixing things.
Yeah.
So I think if we have, I think we're simple creatures.
Your words.
I think I do think that, and I think we don't want to get we don't want to go too much into things. So I think if we basically have a list of that, like that there,
That's
that
the
there,
problem.
and that there, them three things are the problem. Do this, and this will fix that. Do that, that will improve this. I think, yeah, and I generally speaking, I think that would work. I think we work well towards goals. We work well towards tasks.
So, in that vein, with what you're doing, having that conversation with men, does that become something constructive? Is that something? So, say for example, is there something we could put together as a package to say, well, look, if this is a problem, or this is a problem, or this is a problem, you could ask the question, can I find out what the problem actually is? So that, as you say, well, I know I've identified there's an issue over here. If I can find out what's causing the problem, I can then fix the problem. Is that something, do you think, that's a message that doesn't get out to men, that they're aware of, that they're completely unaware of?
It's a tricky one, isn't it, with men, because we do bury our head in terms of communication skills, I think, and openness. That definitely needs to continue improving, especially in the male dominated industries. Yeah. Like you said, there's so much knowledge out there, but we're still absolute utter cavemen.
But do you think there's too much information, though? Do you think maybe that's part of the problem? We're so saturated with stuff. Every time you pick up your phone, you're constantly just getting bombarded with all of this stuff. I think, do people just get a little bit lost in that information?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes you can just
want something a bit more simple.
Yeah, I think simple things definitely work, and just highlighting things, maybe like again, I can only use what examples in my experiences of the field that I work in. So again, I'll just resort to that guy that I spoke to last week. Like, I just asked him the simple questions, like. Are you you are telling me you are struggling, right? Okay, so are you doing exercising? No, and then again I, rattled through them the simple stuff. Are you talking, connecting to anyone? No, right? Okay, your nutrition, what's it like? He would have probably known all of this,
but he said it out loud to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes it more real.
Yeah, he said it out loud. And again, it's just what I did say to him. I said, listen, I think this is all actually a positive. The reason why it's all a positive is because these things can be fixed.
Yeah, they can be changed.
These can be changed. And like I said, the amount of men that I've helped in my community, where I've just give them the simple instructions. There's just, there was one that jumps out. He was telling us he was struggling. He'd had a breakup from a relationship. He was really, really struggling. And this is what I said to him. I said, listen, I said, throw yourself into the gym. I said, get in the best shape you've been in. Get in the best shape you've ever. And I'm not saying like everyone's got to have a six pack, but
good.
But what I just said, look, take some time away from the drink. Don't be going out. Throw yourself into the gym, and and he's still heavily part of my community. And he always says, I'll never forget, that simple instruction of just getting the best shape I've ever got in. And he said, and now he feels fantastic.
It resonated with him at the time. It was something he was able to act on.
Yeah. So I think, and it obviously can be multiple things. There can be trauma. There can be loads of different stuff. But from what I've seen working in the field, most people who are struggling, they aren't doing the basics. So I just think, initiatives like what we do, just kind of like just giving people the knowledge and highlighting things can just can massively help. I don't even know whether that's answered your question, but
yeah, well, I think that's really important because it keeps coming back to the same thing, and you're having the same conversation every day with what you're doing. I'm having the same conversation every day and so does everybody else who's in the wellness industry. Everybody knows this stuff. They don't need to be told it. They know it already.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just need a little nudge.
Yeah.
Just need a little bit of support. And sometimes it's just, I find when people come in, all of a sudden everything just kind of just comes out. It's like being at the barber chair. All of a sudden you're in a therapy session.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden they've said it out loud.
Yeah.
I always try and get people to give me a little bit of back history on them. I'll say, look, Anthony, I don't know anything about Anthony. Nothing is obvious to me. So give me a little snapshot of the last 45 years. What's your immune system been exposed to? And they start talking about all this stuff. And and I forgot about this. And, I broke my leg here. And, I had a massive operation for that. And then and all of a sudden, they're hearing themselves saying it. And they're making all these connections and going, now it's...
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good way to make people really sit and think about it. 'Cause we don't think about ourselves, we're always looking after everybody else.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a great exercise for people, especially men. I think go and have a little think about everything that your body has endured physically and mentally in your lifetime, and you start to get a sense of where you are.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to quickly get this out, right? So this is a quick another instance, right? There was this again. It was another construction site. This one guy particularly who sat in the chair. Before he sat in the chair, there was a guy who started talking about him, right? And they were saying how intelligent he is. They said how unbelievable at his job is. And this guy was like, he ran, he was project manager or something like this. But I got told how impressive this guy was. Anyway, coincidentally, that guy came and sat in my chair. Mm-hmm. And I said, you were getting spoke about so well. And anyway, but then he starts opening up to me how he's struggling and how bad he's feeling. And he was a really, really intelligent guy. But he said, I'm completely out of shape. And he was like, I just feel absolutely terrible. And again, I said, and he started talking about motivation. And I said, listen, I said, don't wait for motivation. I said, do me a favour. I said, just start going to the gym. Go to the gym. I said, go tomorrow. He said he was already a member. Anyway, he said, let me quickly have a look. Let me have a look at this. Seeing this though is one of the best parts of the job. See if he sends a message on LinkedIn, because I told him, I said, do me a favour. I said, just message me when you've been at the gym for a while. Okay. I said, do us a favour, drop me a message, let me know how you are. And I got a message a couple of days ago. Here we go. Hi Anthony, hope you're doing well. 5 weeks into the gym now, lost over 2 stone. Thanks for the motivation. And it was just, and like I said, it was just some simple information. And like I said, I like going to the gym, but it's, you touched on the words Mother Nature. That is something that, honestly, I've got so much experience in seeing how good the Mother Nature, and I think, a lot of people now, when they go to the doctors, they get just immediately told to go on tablets and stuff, and I'm not dissing that, and I haven't got the knowledge to diss it, and it will definitely be useful at times, medication. But Mother Nature, I have seen so many good stuff coming to men out in the forest, going on that walk in that beautiful scenic forest and trees, then doing some bit of breath work, moving, doing some exercise, and then doing cold water. By the time they've done that, the results...
Their dopamine has gone.
Oh, yeah. And
their serotonin has gone. Everything's just working.
Yeah. I remember there was one guy in particular, he'd never done it before. And it was a real magical moment, actually. And he was really struggling. Like, he was literally, some of the stuff he was saying, he was like in a fight for his life. Done that, and he was just, there was the euphoric moment that came out after he'd done the cold water, and he was just like, this is the best I've felt for so long. But he'd just tapped into that. I do believe, like, if you tap into them, earth and stuff, it's
what you're doing with these retreats is you're getting right back to that community. We all need a community.
Yeah.
We all need each other. We all need harmony and peace and oxygen and vitamin D, all the things that are free. So, you're ticking all the boxes. And if you're creating that environment where these guys can feel, oh my God, this is the best I've felt in so long.
Yeah.
It just reminds you of how bad you've been feeling. And that can be enough just to turn things around, just to give them that little bit of motivation to go, right, tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym, tomorrow I'm going to drink more water, tomorrow I'm going to not have a beer, tomorrow. It's little things, and it's just, and I think that's really important for people. I think we sometimes, and I think men maybe more so than women, tend to kind of go all in.
Yeah.
If I'm doing something, I'm doing it, and that's it.
Well, I'm very much like that.
And sometimes we run out of steam.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's okay just to take your time, just do a little bit at a time.
Yeah. Well, I think little and often, but and then what I've found is, again, just from my own personal experience, and you talk about, say, motivation, I tend to say, well, don't wait for motivation, just do it anyway. But then actually, when you start doing it for a little while, that's when actually there's a bit of a like monster that comes out where I'm like, let's go for it here. Yeah. This is working. Let's keep it going. Yeah.
Do you think as well it's a bit of getting out of our comfort zone? Sometimes it's difficult to cross that hurdle. I know when I was I had a bit of a rough patch for a while, and I was just in that really dark place that you just don't want to see anybody. Yeah. Nothing. I mean, you just get up, you just eat, sleep, work, repeat.
Yeah.
And I ended up making a decision, and I went to Zimbabwe, of all places, to a lion breeding sanctuary. Random.
Wow.
And spent a few months out there. And it was this, I remember arriving in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe and going, what on earth have I done? I just burst into tears. I was like, I can't cope with this. This is just the worst thing I've ever done in my life. And within 2 weeks, it was the most incredible thing I'd ever done. And stayed for a few months, and I loved it. But really, sometimes you could be in that really dark place to be able to come out of it as well. And people don't necessarily know that. And I know that people maybe who know me don't know this about me, but you don't share it, do you? Which is a shame. We don't. And I think women maybe don't always do that. I know I didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, putting yourself out of your comfort zone, I think that's probably one of the hardest things to do, isn't it? And finding someone that can give you just that little nudge in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. I remember. It's a very interesting story. I can resonate with that because I remember when I was like in my worst place. The terrifying place for me was, and I'd kind of like I'd got in that bad of a position and situation. I kind of almost had no choice. But mine was like literally getting back into the normal workplace. That was kind of my terrifying place, but it was like actually the best thing ever. Yeah, totally. And then realised like it wasn't even that bad. Do you know what I mean? And then that's when I started making them steps. But I think sometimes you've got to do something. You've got to do something radical, haven't you? Sometimes, or you've got to significantly change it. But I remember I went to where was I? I was in Nairobi. I went there to out in Africa, and that was an incredible experience.
It's a great place.
Yeah.
My brother did a bungee jump at Victoria Falls,
Right.
which at the time was the highest bungee jump in the world. I think it's the second now. He's terrified of heights. So when I went out, his thing was, you need to do this.
Wow.
Bungee jump. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. But I did.
Did you?
I did do it. I did it in tandem with somebody.
Wow.
It was absolutely the best and worst thing I've ever done.
Well, I've done a skydive. I've been told, and I understand this. I've been told a bungee jump's more scary because you can like when you do the skydive, you're so high, you're kind of just jumping into air. But when you're doing like a bungee jump, you can kind of like
see the bottom.
Yeah. And I think that does sound worse.
And do you know what the worst thing about it is once you've gone and you've done that huge drop, then you just bounce.
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And all they do is wrap towels around your ankles, and all you're thinking is, oh my God, if this towel comes loose.
Yeah.
And then you get to climb up back through the bridge. So, I don't know whether jumping out of a plane would be easier, but at least once you've jumped, that's
I do think when you touch on uncomfortable position, like situations, that I do think there's a lot of benefits from that. Like I actually commented on someone today. It was a guy who done me podcast, actually, a guy called Paul Mort, and he basically, his post was around about his son going, basically he'd had a boxing fight, and again, it's a sport that I love, but one of the reasons why I love it is because of the things, the takeaways you can take away from in your life. So, like for me, if you can do that walk and go and have a fight, an organised one, and you've been punched in the face, but you're all right. Like when you can do something like that, like the takeaways from that, where you can take into, a job interview becomes potentially easy.
Yeah.
Because you've walked into having a boxing fight.
I can't imagine that. I can't honestly imagine what that would feel like to have somebody hit you in the face.
The thing is, you're going through fear, you're going through all that, but once and again, it's like the cold water, or so a cold water and say a boxing fight, but like them two things, you're going to feel anxious, like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Questioning it. after you've done it,
You feel amazing.
oh my God, you feel...
And do you feel like that after a fight?
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you?
Yeah, massively.
And have you always done that? Or did you just get into that?
No, I got in. I've always been massively into sport. And but I got into boxing a little bit later in life. But I think it's important. Couple of things. I think it's really actually important that you should be able to defend yourself. I think, I mean, I'm the most placid guy you'll ever meet, but I think you should, right at the back, you should be able, like the worst case scenario, you should be able to defend yourself. I really even if it's just being able to know how to block a shot. Like I'll definitely bring up my kids. They'll be involved in some form of martial art because it'll give them more confidence. And you know, worst case scenario, if someone goes to say punch them, well, guess what?
Yeah,
you know what to do. And then I initially I'd done my first boxing fight to raise money for my godson who had leukemia. So that's what kind of triggered it. But
you've kept it up.
Yeah, kept it up, but then also from like a confidence perspective, it just it actually helped with a lot of different things. It can kind of like, again, if you're public speaking, you know, public speaking is very scary, but having a fight's more scary.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what I mean? So, and then I think you get to realise, like, you get to realise like that you can get through things, and then you can get in, like I said, I think you get to start understanding a lot of the time just over the other end of the hill of fear is huge growth, huge learning. And then again, from a perspective of actually, I remember when I would go and spar, I remember the first couple of times where I'd, got punched all over, and I'm like going, oh wow, I don't like this. Like, wow, I'm absolutely useless. But then going, what did you do wrong there? You were dropping your hand there, and then understanding you're not losing. These are lessons, and then going again, and then go, actually, I got the better of them there. So there's just so many there's so many takeaways that you can actually come away from.
You're learning all the time, aren't you?
Yeah, you're learning all the time. So I
need to take up boxing, really.
Well, no, I just think what you've touched on there is, I just think actually doing some hard things, stepping outside your comfort zone. There's loads of lessons. Yeah,
and I think it's probably something that we all need to be doing a bit more and more of, because we're all getting far too comfortable. And I think probably COVID, do you not think, had a bit of an impact on that?
Oh, yeah.
People became quite insular and...
Yeah, well, I think kids were massively affected by that. Loads of people struggled from mental health. And again, if you could go down another route of, like, I remember the biggest highlight for us was a takeaway. That was the only thing you could do at COVID. And again, you're going to affect your gut health. Do you know what I mean? Is there any standout like story or thing that you've come across, like, by doing the work that you've done? Is there any particular client or anyone you've worked with? Is there any standout story or win that's come from that? There's
a few. I think the one that sticks in my mind the most was, and I still see her from time to time, a lady who I saw it's probably about 10 years ago. I think she came from sort of East Coast somewhere. So she'd driven a long way to come and see me. It was like a 2.5 hour drive or something. And she had come purely based on somebody had mentioned it to her. Now, when she arrived, I think she'd have been maybe 50-ish, early 50s. She was on 2 sticks, really overweight, had chronic rheumatoid arthritis, and her quality of life was 0. Literally didn't leave the house. She became really depressed, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it just so happened when she came in, it was the last appointment of the day. Normally my appointments run for about an hour, and I think we were there for maybe 3 hours. And we just stripped everything back, because arthritis, anything with itis, is inflammatory. So it was trying to figure out, well, where's your inflammation coming from? What are you exposed to? What are you doing? What are you around? So we broke all that down. We talked about everything. She just got it. She just got it really quickly. We did a test. She went away. She applied. But like what you were saying with your guys that come in, just put the foundations in. Let's just do it step by step. And in about 6 months, she had lost, I think 4 or 5 stone. She was no longer on sticks.
Wow.
She was still in quite a lot of pain. There was still quite a lot going on. And we just kept working at that. And she now is in her early 60s. She runs, she cycles.
No way. Oh, wow.
She's amazing.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. But she grasped that. That's not something that, and I always say to people who get really good results, well done you, because you put in that work, you put in that effort.
Yeah.
The information you got was your pillar. That was we've identified the problem. Here's what's causing the problem. They've gone away and they fixed it.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the 3 points that you were sort of mentioning earlier on. And I think she's without question my standard.
Oh, right. Oh, wow. That's absolutely amazing.
Now, rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune condition.
Right, okay.
So autoimmune means that your body is on high alert. Your immune system is so overwhelmed, it's starting to attack itself. It's making mistakes, lots of different reasons for that. She has not had rheumatoid arthritis for over 5 years.
Wow.
Doesn't show up in her blood work.
No way.
She completely reversed that.
Right, okay.
And she alkalized. She did a lot of that. She was a very heavy meat eater.
Right,
she ate a lot
okay.
of processed foods, all that kind of stuff. She got rid of all of that. And she's not vegetarian or vegan,
Right.
but she stripped all of that
Right, okay. Wow.
back. So look,
Wow,
it can
wow,
be
that's
done.
absolutely
Can be
amazing,
done.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it's people aren't like, I think like David Goggins is probably the highlight, like he's probably the biggest kind of these people aren't superheroes. They're not, they haven't had this magic wand. These are just people who've just done something, took action and applied what you meant to apply. So I think that's a great message really of like, you can improve things. There's a lot of stuff you can improve.
Yeah. Well, your Mother Nature thing just keeps coming back into it.
Yeah.
The body is self-repairing. It's its biggest asset. And if you tap into that asset, it's a bit like your car. You know, people will say things like, I'm not going to buy these supplements, 30 quid a month for this, and it's another 15 quid a month for that. And I'm like, how much was your last set of tyres on your car?
Yeah.
How much did you spend on your MOT when your car didn't pass? It's no different.
Yeah,
If we don't service and MOT our engines regularly, which we have to do in today's world, they break down.
Yeah.
So again, back to your modulator hand in the steering wheels. If you can just nudge it
Just
back.
tweak it. Yeah.
And just little steps can grow so that 6 months later, do you know what? I'm back on track.
Yeah.
Took a little while, but that's okay. I'm not on medication. Symptoms have improved, moods improved, marriage has improved, finances have improved. And before you know it, you've gone from this really dark, horrible space by, first of all, this week I'm going to learn to drink water properly. Next week I'm going to turn up at the gym twice.
Yeah.
The next week I'm going to turn up 3 times.
Yeah.
And every week I'm going to spend an hour in a room and learn something new.
Yeah. And is there any other like little snippets or bullet points that you would say around just some real little gems around general nutrition then, in terms of to keeping on top of your health or trying to improve anything?
I think, again, it's probably...
I know it's a broad... It's quite I know it's one size doesn't fit all. I get that.
In a way, it kind of does, Anthony, because ultimately, we all need the same things nutritionally. And I think if we can keep in the back of our mind what's in season, what's grown in this country just now at this time of the year. And if you look at it, it doesn't vary that much throughout the year, but it does vary subtly. And, you know, the fact that we go and buy broccoli off the shelf 52 weeks of the year is a problem.
Right, okay.
A, because the broccoli keeps feeding the same bacteria and encouraging too much of it. And like anything else, too much of a good thing is not necessarily beneficial. So I think thinking seasonally.
Oh, right, okay. So eat seasonally.
I mean, that's not saying you have to do all the time, but just be aware.
Right, okay.
You know, if broccoli's not in season just now, maybe don't have it every day.
Right, okay.
I think trying to, and again, as I said before, it's difficult to eat well in this country. If you're lucky enough to have a farmer's market or a local vegetable stall or you know, anything like that, find out where it is.
Yeah.
And if you shop there regularly, you'll automatically know what's in season. And one of the most diverse things we can do to increase our vitamin uptake is to have our food going from field to plate as quickly as possible.
Right, okay.
Which is what used to happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be more nutrient dense. As soon as you start storing foods, vitamin C drops, I think, within 24 hours by some incredible percentage.
Right, okay.
So by the time it actually reaches your plate and you've cooked it and covered it in teriyaki sauce or whatever we do with it nowadays, it's not really that much. And that's why we should be having around 30 plants a week, because we just got to work that bit harder to get that nutrition into us now. So I think if you can, think about the seasons.
Right, okay.
Still aligns with the seasons. And I think as well, just using your common sense. Little and often is there's a term you used.
Right.
Everything in moderation.
Okay.
If you want to have a McDonald's, but don't do it every week.
Yeah.
If you want to have a beer, but don't do it every night. If you want to so I'm a big advocate, and people will say, I work with a young lad just now, he's a professional athlete, and he said to me, oh, Iona, but you do this stuff all the time. Are you just really disciplined and really good? I'm like, absolutely not. I'm the same as anybody else.
Yeah.
I have my good days and my bad days, and I have spells where I'm just on it, and I have spells where I'm not. And we all have that.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've got to allow that to happen. And I think maybe men maybe are you more like this? I don't know. I feel when men come and see me, if they go off track, they go, oh, that's it. Made a mistake. Oh, to hell with that. That's too hard. I'm not doing it. Yeah. And one of the things that we've talked briefly about this, one of the things I'd really like to develop is some kind of app that can make that easier for us, make these choices easier, so the app gets to know you. AI is great for this stuff. Now it recognises what you like, what you don't like. It can count your plant points. It can count your keep everything in one little place, so that when you do make a mistake, it's like that. Look, don't worry about it, Trevor. It was a mistake. Let's move on. Tomorrow, we'll not do that tomorrow. And I think that's maybe something that maybe that's just a human
that
thing.
is some of that. That's some of that we do, isn't it? Though you fall off track, and then it's like the world's ended. It's just like look, just
it's all or nothing.
Yeah,
I'm either doing it all the time.
Yeah,
or not
just jump back on, and then also like you said there, like realistic goals. Like the guy that who I was speaking to, who was drinking every night. I said, mate, have a drink on a Saturday night. Like, if you like a drink, but don't do it every night. Yeah. Because that is just, that's not going to be good for you. Well, we've talked a lot of shit, we've literally spoke shit. Yeah. We'll finish on that. Okay. Firstly, thank you so much for making the travel to come and do the podcast, and thank you so much for being so supportive of the project.
I love it. I love the project, and I will continue to support it whenever I can.
Much appreciated.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.